Welcome to another episode of Bat Crazy. This week coming to you from my hotel room in New York City. There are very few things in life that are certainties. Death, well, inevitable. Taxes, for the most part. I'd like to throw another one into the mix, if I may. That the endorsement of terrorists means you are firmly on the wrong side of history. To the leaders of the UK, France and Canada, who have today been thanked very publicly by Hamas for their support. What a stain on your legacies that will be. And yes, I agree, they haven't been much chopped thus far, but still, a new low, even for you three. Just when you think Starmer, Macron and Carney have hit rock bottom, there they go. Reminding us all that they're willing to go to any lengths to not only virtue signal, but to play footsies with the devil. Now, for the simpletons out there, and there are plenty of you I know, who still think that opposing the deaths of children in Gaza means you must attack Israel, condemn them, fight them. Let me spell it out for you. There is no one I know who stands with Israel who does not condemn the deaths of innocents, including those in Gaza. On all sides of this sorry saga, they just understand where the blame lies for them. Every single person in the entire world should be using whatever platform they have, big or small, to try and stop war, to save children, to stop suffering. Absolutely. The way not to do that, though, is to appease and suck up to those solely responsible for it, the terrorists. How are we still having to spell this out? Attempting to pressure the victim nation, still with hostages held, and under a very obvious and lethal threat, still, to simply give up is not only highly offensive, it is insanely dangerous. World leaders have incredible sway. Absolutely. Imagine now, I know this is hard to muster the thought, I get it, but just try and imagine if they had banded together in a show of strength on, say, October 8, and demanded that Hamas return the hostages and lay down their arms. Or else, imagine if instead of enabling this tragic shit show to continue along for 17 months, they'd stood firmly with the nation under attack and in opposition of bloodthirsty murderers, united against evil. Instead, their weakness has killed more kids in Gaza than any bomb. So, gentlemen, no one is saying don't fight for the innocents in Gaza. You should, please, continue to do so. But have you actually listened to them of late? Have you seen the protests on the streets? Increasingly so. See, they are now fully aware who their enemy is. Have a listen.
ثورة عشان سامي ابو زهر الندل ابن الندل هو تاين حماس اتفرجوا على الناس ايش بيصير فيهم. خلى تاين حماس انبسط. ايش اليهود حماس حسبي الله ونعم الوكيل. عاش بالصوت ولا واحد معترف فينا عاش بالصوت.
يعني مشاهد قاسية لا توصف صراحة يعني.
حماس ثورة.
In case you're still confused, it's not Israel. So why do you purport to know better than the people on the ground born into this hell? You don't, to put it quite simply. If you truly want to save them, fight the terrorists killing them. And stop trying to tell a democracy to accept a death cult on its doorstep that no Western nation, including you three, ever would. You want them to lay down arms, let their people rot in tunnels, and those who survive to be taken or just killed. Simply because some woke, ill-informed waste of space is trying to appeal to a clueless base who saw some TikTok video funded by Qatar and thinks they understand? They don't. So congratulations, gentlemen, on the very public endorsement from the same people who burnt children alive intentionally and watched joyfully. I'm going to continue fighting for all children in the Middle East, including vehemently for those in Gaza, by supporting every effort I can to destroy the terrorists actually responsible for their deaths. And whilst I won't get any plaudits or love from the ill-informed loony left, I'll sleep soundly knowing I also won't get any from Hamas, unlike the three of you. And that, in my book, is the greatest indicator and reassurance that I've got this figured out a hell of a lot better than you do. Antonio Guterres. I'd love a week where I didn't have to point out his blatant hypocrisy. The United Nations boss and chief terrorist enabler / hypocrite has revealed that he is, and I quote, alarmed. No, don't be silly. Not that there are still hostages in Gaza. Not that the terrorists continue to slaughter innocents all over the Middle East and Africa and plenty of other places too. No. But at the fact that a democratic nation under attack, Israel, has plans to do what it has every right to do, and that is fight back and defend itself. Rescue hostages that have been held for coming up to 2 years, to stop their people being killed, to eliminate Hamas, the terror group wholly and solely focused on the complete destruction of their people, And no, that's not an educated guess or a vibe or a feeling. It's their mantra. They write it down. Plus, they're very comfortable publicly stating their genocidal intent at every possible opportunity. Off the back of course, carrying it out very effectively on October 7. So whilst the UN completely omits the fact that Hamas launched this war and still holds innocents, they call out the victims for deciding to take control and fight for their survival. What a joke. Guterres also reiterated an appeal of full support for UNRWA. UNRWA. The group who took part in the biggest slaughter of Jews since the Holocaust and run the programs educating young people in Gaza to join the death cult. Those guys. He went on to demand, and yes, this is not a joke, adherence to international law and humanitarian principles. Oh, and he also called for independence. This from the agency that has run cover for Iran's proxies for years. The boss also rejected, by the way, the displacement of the population in Gaza. Not sure if he quite gets it, but over 1,000 people in Israel were displaced when they were either killed or kidnapped. But not to worry about them. Plus, surely displacement beats death by Hamas. Again, you seem completely unaware that the terrorists are not only killing Jews and Israelis and people from all over the world, they're shooting their own people too. Their own people who are starting to cotton on to who the real problem is in the region. There'd be no displacement if the hostages were released and Hamas stopped trying to kill everyone, put down their weapons. Again, not a word from old mate about the hostages, just condemnation of the only genuine democracy in the Middle East and the nation under attack on multiple fronts by vile terrorists. Well done, UN. You never fail to deliver. Now, still on this conflict, and gosh, there's so much to cover. I see so much commentary regarding Israel's response and the proportionality of it. Now, Piers Morgan says Israel has long since crossed the line. Now, I'd ask him and all those who say the same to please give us their take on what would be considered appropriate. If, say, October 7 had occurred but there were no hostages left in Gaza and all of Hamas had surrendered straight away, then absolutely, you would successfully argue that the continuation of a military response would be disproportionate. Absolutely. If the threat had completely disappeared, then one might categorize Israel's military actions right now as revenge-inspired rather than self-defense or a necessity. I get it. Which would all be good and well if there weren't still hostages, and if the genocidal maniacs who murdered the most number of Jews again since the Holocaust weren't still armed, dangerous, and promising to repeat the slaughter every chance they get. They're saying it out loud, and they're trying to do it constantly. And this is what frustrates me with so much of the commentary around this war in the Middle East. It completely omits or negates the fact that there are still hostages held captive and attacks on the lives of innocent Israelis by Hamas. I say it again, no other Western nation would ever accept Hamas on its border. Yet they try to impose that very existence on Israel, who not only has a right to self-defense, but a duty to protect its people. Now, there is still a threat, a very real threat. It hasn't gone away. Israel failed once to protect its people on October 7. It cannot fail again. It cannot let them regroup. It cannot let them rearm. It cannot let them come again even harder next time. No country would. If the world wants that process of neutralizing the threat to be quicker, then maybe stop propping up the terrorists and giving them a bone every 5 seconds. It only prolongs the suffering on all sides and ensures this cycle of horror will continue for many years to come. Now, in further evidence that swapping your terror threads for a suave suit and trimming your beard doesn't completely erase that murderous ideology, who'd have thought? New Syrian President al-Jilani had this to say regarding 9/11.
What did you think and feel on 9/11 at the time?
يكذب عليك أي شخص يعيش في العالم الإسلامي والوطن العربي إذا قال لك أنه لم يكن سعيد في ذاك الوقت.
Now, I don't care how wrong you perceive yourself and your people to have been treated by another nation. To derive joy over the deaths of innocents, including women and children, in the most horrifying of circumstances is not normal, nor mainstream, nor remotely acceptable. These weren't soldiers in battle. These were citizens who had absolutely nothing to do with any American government policy or action. If what he says is true, that every single person living in the Islamic or Arab world would be happy about it, then things are a lot worse than even I'd suspected. Now, I don't believe him, by the way, at all. I really don't. But wouldn't it be nice, well, more than that, incredibly powerful, if we saw now an avalanche of those to whom he's referring come out and vehemently disagree? I mean, I condemn terrorism wherever it occurs and to whomever. Doesn't matter who's carrying out or who the victim is. I call on Muslims and Arabs to come up publicly and reject his assertion that you were happy about what happened on September 11 when so many innocent people died, or that you're happy about what happened on October 7, or that you enjoy watching this sadistic slaughter. Play your part in showing the world that these extremists do not speak for you or your family or your culture. Can you imagine how much of an impact that would have? Not just in the Western world, but in fact that's secondary, but for your own people. For children who are yet to determine what kind of future they want or they can have, who haven't yet been completely radicalized but might be on the brink, on the edge. This moment matters. I lived in Indonesia for 7 years. I speak the language of the world's largest Islamic population. There are devout Muslims that I consider family, some who helped raise me. I was back there in December visiting them, women who wear the full hijab. They are absolutely divine souls. The vast, vast majority of the people I met in Indonesia over many years were extraordinarily kind and decent people, the vast majority of them Muslim. But their voices are missing. And I get it. I understand why. I do. I get why it's hard to speak out. especially when it feels unsafe, when it feels scary, when it feels like you're in the minority, and you will be, yes. The consequences in some places might be unimaginable to many of us, but your children are dying more than any other children because of this terrorism, because of this extremism. Muslim and Arab children will continue to suffer more than any other. It's time for those in your world to do some of the heavy lifting here and help. There are one or two, the likes of Amjad Taha and Dalia Ziada, brave souls risking their lives to fight for their people and for others, to fight for all of us. They need help. Join the chorus. Now, there are so many who say that my voice is powerful in this space because I'm not Jewish and I'm not Israeli, because I have apparently no skin in this game, but chose to enter this fight because I was raised to stand for what is right, even when it's hard. But let me tell you what beats me and my non-Jewish, non-Israeli, Australian Catholic voice every day of the week. What makes the most impact here, what will actually result in legitimate, epic change of vast proportions. That is Muslim and Arab voices. Those brave enough to stand up against hate and terror and the senseless murder of innocents. Nobody wins here, none of us. Unity in the condemnation of terror, it matters more now than ever before. Appeasement, enablement, and empowerment of it has only prolonged the suffering for everyone. In Israel and Gaza, all over the world, everywhere this evil occurs. So I implore you, my Muslim friends, my Arab friends, stand up and make your voice heard. You don't need to stand for Israel or stand for the Jews. Stand for your own people. Stand for your children. Stand for humanity. Stand and fight for a world where terror isn't weaponized and then rewarded. Stand so that your kids have freedom from pain and death, to live in peace. Stand for hope, because without you, without your voices, none of us will ever have it. Now, to the US of A. Bruce Springsteen is continuing his Trump Derangement Syndrome tour, the TDS tour. Poor audience members who just want to hear and see a little middle-aged / elderly hip gyration. I mean, instead they're being treated to this.
Dreams, but things are happening right now that are altering the very nature of our country's democracy, and they're too important to ignore. They're rolling back historic civil rights legislation that led to a more just society. They're abandoning our great allies and siding with dictators against those who are struggling for their freedoms. That's happening now. They are defunding American universities that won't bow down to their ideological demands. And they are removing residents off American streets without due process of law and deporting them to foreign detention centers and prisons. That's happening now. A majority of our elected representatives have utterly failed to protect the American people from the abuses of an unfit president and a rogue government. One, two.
Bruce Almighty, what are you talking about? Let me help you. I get decades of rock star life will impact your ability to think rationally, but even this is extreme. You're worried about universities in America who won't, and I quote, bow down to the administration's ideological demands. Let me just sum up these so-called ideological demands from the US administration. Don't support, promote, encourage, or take part in terrorism, and don't target and threaten, intimidate minority groups. That's it. I mean, that's essentially it. And didn't all of you on the left used to believe like in those pretty basic principles? Oh, and by the way, removing residents off American streets. Yes, illegal residents, Bruce. Not your everyday suburban, family-oriented, middle-class, dad either, as much as you like to try and sell that narrative. Gangsters, criminals, murderers, rapists. The left also used to be against those type of people too. So Bruce, instead of trying to be clever, hip, politically savvy, stop embarrassing yourself and do what you used to do best. And if that ability is starting to dry up, as it does for all eventually, sod off and start a podcast. So then at least those listening have chosen explicitly to do so, rather than your current method of tricking them into thinking they were going to a concert, to relax, forget about life for a while, but instead they're subjected to your irrelevant dribble. Now, it reminded me of a couple of videos that, they made me laugh. Perhaps, and I don't say this lightly, even more severe cases of TDS than Springsteen, if that's even possible. And this woman, well, her attempt to be cute, clever, really fell kind of flat.
MAGA hat. Yeah, Trump. Woo!
Is this gay?
Oh, I know.
Just checking.
Trump fan.
Never know.
Trump?
No. It says make America gay again.
Great again.
Gay.
I know, but we love Trump, right?
Golly gosh, these people provide the best content. Please, my wonderful viewers, send me more. Now, to end this episode, a little bit of a somber note. I wanted to talk very quickly about the news this week regarding former US President Joe Biden. Now, plenty will be debated over the next little while, and rightly so, regarding when he and others knew about this and not whether or not it should have been disclosed to the American public. Absolutely. That is a very, very legitimate debate. You can feel two things at once. You can feel immensely sad that someone's family is going through this, regardless of how you feel about them politically or even personally. But you can also be absolutely furious that something so significant in someone so important was hidden from the American public. But as someone who lost their dad to this very same disease a couple of years ago, I genuinely, my heart is breaking for them. It is an horrific thing for any family to go through, to watch someone you love be basically eaten alive by this insidious disease, someone suffer, people around them suffer. There are no words to properly describe what their family has been going through and will go through now. And I send all my love, thoughts and prayers to all of them. There's nothing harder than watching someone you love go through this. It doesn't matter who you are. Watching my dad, who was a senator, a major general, a big, strong, 6'4", incredible human being. No one else could beat him. ISIS, Al-Qaeda, even his political opponents, who were pretty dirty at times, but this was the battle that he could not win. And we miss him every single day. So I would say as well to all of you out there to please get checked, get tested. Gentlemen, test your PSA. I remember so vividly when Dad got the text from the doctors and we didn't know what type of cancer it was. And when they said prostate, we were so happy because it's so treatable if you get it early. In most cases, people say you die with it, not from it. So for the sake of those that will be left behind and will never recover or heal from your loss, I urge you all to please get tested as soon and as early as possible. And not that Dad is a subscriber to my YouTube channel, but I'm sure he's watching from up there. It is such a privilege to still miss you this much and to hurt so much at the thought of you, which is constant every single day. Love you. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week.